Hello, everybody. Welcome to Soul Conversations with,
Jenna.
and that's Jenna, and I am Patty. And
Awesome.
thank you for stopping by and joining us. But before we continue on this journey and before we kind of go through who the hell we are and what the hell we're doing here, wanted to kind of take some time to create sort of a sacred space for all of us to anchor into the present moment. It also allows Jenna and myself to anchor in what our hearts and our souls want to share and say at this time. So just invite you to close your eyes, place your left hand on your heart space, place your right hand on your high heart, which is the area between your heart and your throat. And I invite you to just take a few deep cleansing breaths to anchor in the present moment, to feel your body. To move the energy from our thoughts and our monkey minds into our heart space where everything is at peace, where everything is calm, where everything is truth. And release any tension within your body. Allow yourself to be in this present now moment, allowing yourself to open up to the message that you're meant to hear. May Jen and I be a conduit and channel to soul messages that will open up your heart space, that will expand our mindset, and that will anchor in love in this now moment. In love and light and gratitude. Thank you. And in your own time, open your eyes and anchoring gratitude in this present moment.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel? Are we good?
So good. Thank you for doing that.
Of course. Hopefully everyone feels good. Everyone feels here and now. And so I guess we begin the conversation with who the hell are we? That is actually a question I've been asking myself.
Right.
Right? I feel like in this journey, in the spiritual path, we're always asking ourselves, who the hell am I? And what am I doing here? Which actually leads me to the reason why we're here, the reason why we decided to start this conversation. It's what we call soul conversations. And we've been having soul conversations since we met about a year ago. Is it more than a year now? Yeah, more than a year now. Mm-hmm. And we've always had these really deep, beautiful conversations. And I kind of feel like that was sort of the catalyst to starting this channel, because there was so much wisdom and so much sort of just heart-opening activations that happened while we were having these conversations, and we wanted to share that with a wider audience. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm certainly in a place as well where, sometimes you just feel like some things need to be shared. And I love these conversations that we have soul to soul, and just so much divine wisdom and different perspective and understanding has just flowed through the both of us, and I'm just feeling ready. We're both feeling ready to share that with people, and just kind of be a little bit of assistance and support, and just to show people that these things that we are all going through, it's not, no one is singled out. We're all kind of having this journey together, and we need to, I said earlier in one of our earlier conversations that for me this year, I really want to emphasize community and unity, and just kind of turning toward each other. So
Yeah. So first, I wanted to maybe do some introductions, real like just a little bit of a little bio, I guess, so that everyone knows who we are. I'll have you start, Jenna.
all right. I am Jenna Jackson, and um, if you'd like to head over to my page at some point after, my IG is at gratitude365. And that's very much a reflection of, who I am. Although that's always kind of shifting, I always lead my day and my life with gratitude. Um, as of late, I have been dabbling in breath work. So I do facilitate breath work. And a little bit of what got me in that journey is just my own struggle with anxiety and panic attacks. So, the past year, I discovered breath work, and I remembered just how much coming back to the breath really healed me when I was in a place where I felt like I had no control. So, yeah, I'm in a space now where I'm able to be of service to people, and especially living now in these COVID times, I feel like anxiety and PTSD and just that unease in our nervous systems are unfortunately on the rise. So, it's really good to just be in a space to help people to regulate their nervous systems and find safe space, and know that in times where we often feel so out of control, that we do have more control than we think. Um, yeah, and a little bit of my mission here is to just draw closer to like my divine and God-given mission. I'm definitely in a space lately where my priorities are shifting, and I'm just all about just intention and community, and really just seeing my vision come to fruition, and collaborating and meeting people who share a similar vision, that I do, or even a vision that I feel like I can support as well, and really just kind of creating this better life, this better reality than the one that is sometimes forced on us. that's
Yes.
that's me.
Just for the record, I've known Jenna for about a year and a half. We actually met online during a sister circle and a certification program that we were doing online, and we finally met in person over the summer. And we actually started these soul conversations about a year ago. And as life would have it, just our spiritual paths like really got us into deep shadow work. So we actually ended up kind of pulling back a little bit and recalibrating and realigning when we would have these soul conversations again. And in the last, I would say 2 months, we were talking and said, let's bring this back up, because I think it's much needed now that we've gone through our own process. And I think as you kind of follow our journey here, you'll kind of see similarities within your own journey. And I think that's really why we wanted to start this, is because we know so many people are going through a lot from a spiritual awakening standpoint, especially those who are new on the path and don't really have an ally or have an idea of who to go to. We wanted to be that light and guide. So, but I'm Patty. I'm Patricia Cara. And if you wanted to follow my journey, I have an IG account as well. It's called Goddess Spirit Alchemy. And on there, I kind of share sort of my, I guess, aha moments and sort of what I've learned on this spiritual path, what I've learned on the healing journey. And I kind of dabble in kind of showing you how to navigate sort of that spiritual aspect of it, and what is a spiritual awakening and all that good stuff. I'm a spiritual coach and an energy healer. And that sort of part of my life didn't really come to fruition until about a couple years ago, when I went on a deep, deep healing journey myself. And I realized that this is the path I want to be on, because I do want to be of service and help support the collective and as Jenna mentioned earlier, community and create sacred space so that everyone can be comfortable coming in and having these deep conversations, because most of us don't. Most of us kind of don't want to have those conversations because we don't know whether or not we feel safe to be vulnerable and open ourselves up. And I want to share that it is safe. And I will be very, very 11. I will be very, very vulnerable on here. I will be open as I can be. And I will kind of bring in my experience and my truth into these conversations, because ultimately my soul is my truth. She's the one that's leading and guiding the way. My intention for this is really what I just said, soul conversations, and really being able to be a light and a guide to anyone on this spiritual path. But also, I really want everyone to understand and to know, and even maybe come into remembrance of who you are as a soul, as a sovereign divine soul that can tap into your source of magic, of power and love, because that all lives within us. And there's going to be layers and layers of that that will be revealed to you throughout your journey. And these conversations will hopefully sort of help guide that way. And that's really, yeah, I mean, what else are we going to be talking about on here, Jenna? Spirituality,
Yeah.
shadow work.
I
Ooh,
yeah, spirituality, we'll cover some shadow work. Definitely, I don't know, I think also just learning to go with the rhythm of life. I think oftentimes we can just be so hard on ourselves, and I feel like life has this like ease and flow to it, this rhythm that we need to just kind of surrender to. So
mhm.
would love to cover that. And of course, as times change and we're adapting ourselves, different topics will come up, and hopefully everyone can take pieces of it and might resonate with certain parts. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think spirit will actually guide us. God
okay.
will guide us as to what conversations need to happen at any given moment in time. And whoever's, I guess my other intention is that whoever is meant to find us, whoever is meant to receive any kind of message that's going to help them along their path, and anyone that's meant to receive any kind of coding or activation or healing through our words and through our conversations will find us. And that's really sort of my prayer and my kind of collectively creating a bubble of protection around sort of our conversations, to make sure that whoever is meant to find us and whoever is meant to be guided here will be guided here. Yeah, so I think in that's the gist of sort of where we're coming from. And as you kind of get to know us a little bit better, you'll kind of see the similarities in our journey. You'll see the similarities of our journey in your journey, and we'll go from there. And if feel free, again, Jenna mentioned we want to create a community. Feel free to message us if there is some sort of topic that you want to hear and listen. If there is some questions that you have, whether you're new on this path, whether you're doing shadow work, or whether you don't even know what the hell shadow work is. I mean, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to us on our IG accounts. We'll probably create an email that you can connect with us on. But yeah, we are just here to really serve the community and serve, I won't say humanity, but serve as many souls as we can possibly serve during this time, because we know that it is a little bit of a rough, saying this, sugarcoating it a little bit. It's been rough, guys. It's been rough. It's been rough even for us who have been on the spiritual path for a long time. But I think for us, we're really lucky that we have the modalities and the things within our tool belt and each other to help us through it. And I think that's the important part, that you are not alone on this journey. We were never meant to be alone in this journey. There's a reason why there's community. There's a reason why certain people resonate with certain people, because we're all meant to walk each other home, as Ramda says. Ramdas, I always say that.
Yes, and I like what you said about just the tools, you know. I think the biggest thing is just sharing the tools that we've collected along the way. You know, we live in this time right now where everybody is taking their knowledge and using it to create courses and teach. And, you know, the point of it is to save someone the 10 years of learning that
Yeah.
they've done so that you can execute it in 1 year, 6 months. And so for me, at least, it's kind of the same thing. You know, this has been, you know, probably about a 4 year, 3 year journey for me now. And if I can take what I've learned in 3 years and you can collect that and kind of bypass, I don't like the word bypass, but you know, troubleshoot your way and
Quantum
yeah,
leap. We'll use the
there
word
you
quantum
go.
leap into yeah, into a
That's a
different
great word.
path or paradigm.
Then
Yeah. We
yeah,
don't ever bypass here.
yeah.
We can't.
No. So yeah, that would make me so happy.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. So I guess the next topic of conversation that I kind of, so actually today is okay, we're recording this today. It is January 17th, 2022, and tonight is actually the first full moon of the year. And I'll bring in a little bit of that because that's sort of, I love rituals and practices around the moon phases. And that's sort of part of my journey, and what I've kind of used as a way to anchor in my own personal rituals and practices. So today's a full moon, and full moons are really all about completions and completing a cycle, and sort of closing the loop, right? What's come to fruition. And one of the conversations we wanted to share with to you guys today was the fact that it is 2022. We just finished a 2021 cycle. And it's always really a great opportunity to reflect back on the last 12 months of our lives to see how far we've come. Because a lot of us are like, oh, I didn't do enough. But when you really think about it, you did. You probably did a lot, and you accomplished a lot, and you learned a lot. And I think I wanted to kind of have a conversation about, you know, the top three things that really helped you in the last 12 months. So the three things that really kind of you took from the last 12 months that can help others on their journey.
Do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Do you want to do the top three things and kind of talk about what's
Um,
number one for you? You want to do that,
yeah.
or do you want to do the three things all at once?
No, we can kind of bounce back and
Okay.
forth.
I
So
did my homework.
good, me too.
Okay, so
Okay,
let's do this.
I'll let you kick it off.
Okay, all right. So I'm just gonna, if you see me looking down, it's because I have notes. I just want to make sure that, because when I wrote these notes, it was really a channeled message from my soul. So I want to make sure that I'm able to really share that message in the most kind of clear way as I can. So when I started 2021, the interesting part is I used to do resolutions. Don't think resolutions ever work. So I anchor in intentions or energy. So the one word that I had wanted to anchor in for 2021 was transformation. The interesting thing about transformation is, in order to transform, there actually is a process of death, rebirth that happens. And they always say, be careful what you wish for, because if you're not clear as to what that transformation looks like, I mean, it could come in any way, shape, or form. So I forgot to be clear in the fact that I wanted a transformation to come with ease and grace, because the death and rebirth that happened throughout 2021 for me was really, really rough. And Jenna and I had talked about this. I mean, there was a point where I was just, I I couldn't do the spiritual things anymore because I was so exhausted. But having said that, in that exhaustion, there were a lot of moments of clarity. which brings me to the 3 things that I actually learned after going through a really, really rough death rebirth transformation during 2021. So 3 things that I learned or anchored in from last year and that I'm going to kind of continue to evolve going forward is, and we talk about this, sovereignty. That's such a huge word of 2021 because I know a lot of light workers and just people on the spiritual path that have been on the path for a while. Sovereignty was actually huge, huge kind of concept and idea, which I didn't know what sovereignty was until I was in it, until I finally said one day, no, I take back my power. I take back my life. These are my values, these are my belief systems, and these are the morals and the conscience that I am working off of based off of my truth. This is what I believe in and this is what I'm doing for my life. And that ultimately is what sovereignty is. It's really taking ownership of our life and really being clear as to what our values, our belief systems are that will dictate how we show up in this world. And anchoring in that sovereignty is basically creating a boundary and saying, no, this is me, this is my truth, this is what I believe in, and this is what I'm doing. Do you have any words about sovereignty?
Of course I do. I'm
I know you do. I know you're like, yes, yes, yes.
I'm sitting here. I've been working on trying to be a better listener. So I'm like, let me allow Patty her space to share. But no, I agree with you. And I love what you said about like a lot of people. I feel that a lot of people in the spiritual community are for sure waking up to what is sovereignty, because this is something that hasn't been on my radar for a long time either. And then just all of a sudden it popped into my atmosphere, my ambit, and I'm obsessed with how can I be a more sovereign being, especially in the current climate where I feel like especially myself, I have to anchor more and more into my sovereignty daily because, slowly I just feel my personal experience that a lot of our freedoms are slowly being taken away from us. That ownership in certain areas of our life are being taken away from us. And I'm constantly asking myself, how can I take ownership over my life and my experience? Um, so I wake up every day and I ask, that's like one of the first questions on my mind is how can I be more sovereign? And I ask that because I want it to like be churning in my head at all times because I feel like the battle for our sovereignty is working on such a subconscious level, that I always want to be aware of where I feel like my power is being taken away. I want to notice those things. I don't want to wake up 10 years from now and be like, what happened? Why don't I feel like I have ownership over myself anymore? How did I get here? I want to know, I want to take responsibility for my actions and know that if I'm not in the place that I wanted to be in, 5 years from now, well, that was my doing because I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I'm responsible for my life and the vision and the journey that I wake up for every day. So yeah, sovereignty is such a big, powerful word. And that's something that I would love Patty to speak on more because sovereignty is such an empowering, it's so empowering. And in a time where, the world is just making us feel so disempowered to be able to wake up, and realize that we are sovereign. It's just such an empowering feeling. And I feel that it fuels me. It fuels me for my vision. It fuels me for my mission and, whatever legacy I leave behind here. So yeah, love
I love
that
that you
word.
said that. I love that you said that you wanted to talk about this more because I think this is a really big conversation to have. And there's so much more to dig deeper into really some people might not understand what sovereignty really is, what it means to be a sovereign soul. So it's a really good conversation to kind of go back to the basics of what that is and how we even got to a place of sovereignty. Because, you know, in the beginning of last year, I knew nothing about sovereignty. I probably did a little bit, but not really anchoring that in and embodying that. And it wasn't until probably mid-year that it clicked. And that's because you had mentioned earlier, you know, what are the practices that I can do? Like, what can I do every day to anchor in that sovereignty? And that's really what it is. It's anchoring in every single day and asking yourself the question, how could I be sovereign today? How can I take back my power today? How can I not give my power away? So, yeah, so that's word number one. Um, the second, which might trigger some people only because we've been indoctrinated, in some cases, indoctrinated to believe um, that, so the word is God, and that's all, God. And I say people might be triggered when I say God because some people don't believe in God. Some people have a very distorted relationship with God because it depends on how we were indoctrinated to understand who God is. So ultimately, God was one of the words of 2021 for me, was because I finally understood that this spiritual journey is literally, no matter how you get there, and if the spiritual journey had some sort of goal or end goal, ultimately the spiritual journey is a coming back home to self, to come back home to God. And for me, it was a true, deeper understanding of who and what God is in my life, and a deeper understanding of me as a sovereign soul, and the fact that I am a manifestation of God's love. And this spiritual journey really is about unveiling deeper layers of what love is, and deeper layers and understanding of God. And I'm just going to leave it at that for now, because I think that's a whole nother conversation to be had.
I just want to say I'm loving I mean, I resonate with all of these so much. And it's funny how it feels like we're kind of like on a similar timeline of having these like realizations and revelations. But yeah, it's crazy. Like if I were a viewer and I'm listening to this, like probably only 6 months ago, maybe 8 months, I would have been so defensive. I've certainly had my guard up and walls up and everything, when it comes to the God word, even I did a talk on my Instagram. I did an Instagram live like some months ago, and had a conversation about religion. And I go back and I look at it, I have it saved, and I just see the discomfort that I had because of my trauma around my spiritual upbringing.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable word for me. And somehow, some way, God has a way of weaseling in our hearts, awakening all that has been dormant and forgotten. And I just found myself resonating with it more and more in a very unexplained way. It began to make its way into my ambit. I'm noticing that I'm resonating and following people who are taking on this new understanding of God. And I'm like, I feel that, I do. And it's weird how these kind of supernatural things kind of work underneath our surface, because something that I could be so against one day, I can wake up with a whole new understanding and perspective the next. And that was nothing but the work of God, the work of the divine spirit, just has a way of moving within ourselves in a way that we can sometimes not understand. So I'm with you. I've had that God awakening too, and no shame, and fully for it. And every day that I've been able to come back to that truth, my connection with the spirit world has been just, whoa. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm in just such deeper communion with God, and it makes me feel so much more secure, you know.
Mhm.
Nothing has made me feel secure in my life. I think security is like non-existent, but there is security in my relationship with God. And that security, that knowing, that understanding that I get to wake up to every day is what keeps me feeling stable when everything is constantly shifting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. God's the anchor, right? God's the anchor,
mhm.
and God, like, ultimately how we become sovereign is our trust in God.
Yeah, you're so
And
good with the
that's what
words, Patty. I feel like you always
that's
take
because I
my,
wrote it down.
yeah, you take
I
so
appreciate it.
take my mumbo jumbo and you just tie it all up so beautifully. So I
You were
love
not
you for
mumbo
that.
jumbo. I completely understand what you're saying. And I
Awesome.
think a lot of people will understand as well. I will say, just before I go to my last word, if you are triggered, meaning there's some discomfort within you when we talk about God, and you want to have a deeper understanding of why, ask yourself the questions of how you learned about God and what you were indoctrinated into believe about God. Because I really do believe that trusting God is a really, really important part of our spiritual journey. And if we fear God, if that was what was instilled in us growing up, that God is a vengeful God and God is will be mad at you for X, Y, and Z, there's no way we can fully trust and surrender to God if that is what our belief system is. So just this is probably going to be another conversation to be had, because there is a lot there, but just some food for thought in terms of that.
I think those are great reflections, great questions, and I would definitely like dive deep into that. But I also just want to add, I think a lot of that is a reflection of how we feel and how much we trust ourselves as well. I would say I really struggled with trusting myself and trusting my wisdom and or the wisdom that comes through me. And the more that I begin to trust in God, the more I begin to trust in myself. And I think it's that connection, like when we're shutting off that, we're shutting off these parts of ourselves. And I don't know, I think it just creates this confusion. But yeah, I think I've been leaning a lot on, there's this words that I used to hear when I was younger, and I would say, lean not on your own
Your own
understanding.
understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been writing it in my journal over and over and over again, like reflecting on this.
Yeah.
And I'm going nowhere with that. But I just wanted to like pose that as I'm just in this place where I'm trying to figure out like what does that really mean
Yeah.
to me, because a lot of times I don't lean on my own understanding, and I see that as a good thing. When I'm not sure, I go to what is sure,
Yeah.
So that's all I'm gonna say.
There's a lot to unpack with what we learned growing up in terms of the words and like sort of those belief systems about God. And depending on what religion you grew up in, there's different contexts to God, and depending on who taught you, right? So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there when it comes to God. But I thought you'd like that one.
Loved it.
And the last thing is rest. And that was really, really hard. And rest, when I say rest, I mean sort of leaning back and trusting and surrendering into sort of that divine feminine energy. And that's a whole nother conversation to be had. But what I realize about rest is we tend to constantly do, even in the spiritual world and even in our practices, we feel like we have to do everything to get to this particular spot, when in reality, yes, there are divine inspired action that we have to take in order to get to certain place in our life, in order to kind of evolve and grow and understand everything that we're learning on the spiritual path. But rest was one of those things that I forgot was absolutely needed in order for integration and embodiment. Because in rest is when we are able to hear God clearly. In rest is when we're able to lean into our own understanding, which is our intuition. Rest is really where a lot of those aha moments come in because there's no stimulation. When you're resting, or at least when I've been forced to rest, because I actually got really, really sick back in October, and I actually was on the floor crying in my bathroom because I told God, I give up. I cannot do this anymore, because there was just so much emotion coming up. There was so much hurt and pain as I was processing through a lot of things. But that needed to happen for me to understand that rest is really important on the journey, because there is such a thing as spiritual burnout. And because we are consuming so much information, downloading so much energy, downloading so much activations. And when I say activations, I mean like just things that are making us remember the things that we're meant to remember, if that makes sense. Like, there are certain belief systems that we have that we are deprogramming so that we can reprogram new belief systems that are more in alignment to our soul and to our truth. But I think rest is probably one of the most important and integral parts in this spiritual journey, because without rest, we're just constantly doing. And we are, this is such a cliche, but we are human beings, not human doings. And the rest piece really comes down to being in our divine feminine, at least from my experience, being in my divine feminine flow, being in my divine feminine receptivity, expanding my energy to receive, to allow, to trust, to surrender, to just be. And that's it. And that's it. But yeah, we live in a society where we are constantly doing, and rest, whether it's a nap. So there's two types of rest. There's active rest and there's passive rest. Active rest for me means actually meditating, sitting down in silence, meditating, lighting a candle. That's active rest for me. Passive rest would be taking a nap, sleeping, taking a nap, waking up, taking a nap, waking up, taking a nap, waking up. Like, sometimes naps, it's funny, I posted this the other day. I was like, when I'm having a conversation with someone and I get triggered by something, or they ask me a question, I sometimes have to say, you know what, let me take a nap. Let me take a nap and come back to you, because I don't ever want to react, because we're always in a reactive state. Don't want to react. So let me just nap it out for a second. And then I'll come back, and a lot of the times the download will come through of how I meant to respond. So naps are really good. It will probably alleviate a lot of fighting, arguing, and miscommunications. That's what I think, especially now. Actually, July. It's January 17th. Mercury is in retrograde. Communication. But yeah, so those are the three things. Sorry, it took a while. Sovereignty, God, and rest. 3 things for 2021 that I learned.
Love that. Yeah, rest is on my list too. So
yeah.
it is. And you're absolutely right. I feel like for the first time I'm understanding the difference between passive and active rest. For me, rest was always just kind of gotta do nothing, gotta get a nap in, gotta disconnect. But there is like very intentional rest as well, where I feel like I'm resting, but I'm still feeding my spirit and feeding my soul. And yes, I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, I love how you describe that too. That's always a really important distinction of what active and passive rest is.
Thank you. All right. My
Tell
turn.
me yours. Tell me yours. Tell us yours.
Yeah. So let's see. My first one, you did yours so beautifully in these little bullets. Mine is always very lengthy, but my first one was just kind of learning my first lesson, going with just the rhythm of life. Um, I feel like as I look back and reflect on my lessons in 2021, I just see where I was adding so much more resistance, so much unnecessary resistance because the lack of acceptance that life is, nature is going to take its course no matter what. And I'm the type of person that's just always trying to solve and run interference on everything that isn't going the way that I want it to go. So, really, a greater word for that would probably be acceptance, but just accepting that life is how it is what it is, and nothing will change that natural course. So, how can I just surrender and kind of like flow down the river of life with it? And then anchoring in a lot of these things that you mentioned, like anchoring in my connection with God and anchoring in my sovereignty so that I can flow with ease, which actually goes to my theme for 2022, which is ease and flow. But yeah, I just, again, with the sovereignty, I got to take responsibility for our life, and I was just able to see where I was creating a lot of problems in my life because I just didn't want to go with the flow. So I am definitely going to start like embracing the rhythm of life and just, enjoying it, but also just allowing things to happen how they're supposed to happen, which is a part of my divine path and plan. And sometimes when I let go, I can notice that, if only I just like threw my hands back for a minute, things were going to work out the way that I wanted it to anyway. And instead, I kind of dipped my toe in everything and prolonged what could have unfolded more beautifully in its own natural way, if that makes sense. So that's my first lesson.
I love that. It's really important that to become aware that there are cycles and rhythms of life. There are ebbs and flows. And you say the word resistance, and usually a lot of the time when there is resistance, that's when we have to trust and surrender and step back and say, okay, well, why is there resistance? There's resistance because this is not the path. This is not what we're supposed to be doing. So how can I then be? So we trust and surrender, and we see a bird's eye view of what's happening. We're like, oh, I'm trying to control this situation, but this situation is not meant to manifest the way I want it to manifest. This situation is supposed to manifest the way God intended for it to manifest. I just need to surrender and follow divine inspiration.
Mm,
Yeah,
that's
I
it.
love that. That's it, right? And the ebb and
Right.
flow.
The
Yeah.
ebb and flow. And I love how you mentioned the bird's eye view, because I think oftentimes we have to learn how to just like let go, fly up and see that bird's eye view. Because oftentimes when we create resistance, we're so far in it,
Yeah.
all we're seeing is just this little bit. And if only we allowed ourselves to rise up a little bit and see the whole thing, and be like, okay, like I'm okay. Um, because yeah, when you're in it, you can't see much of what's going on. And we have these like very intense bodily experiences that just make everything feel urgent and pressing and now. So I like to just visualize myself just like falling back and
Mhm.
letting go,
Yeah.
just like when you were like, just let go. That's it exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have to, and it's also really important to have people around you that understand that there are ebbs and flows so that they can then hold space. Because I remember a time last year when I was like, oh, I can't have a call today, or like, I can't do this today. Can we do it next week? I'm going through some things. And you were like, absolutely. And vice versa. Because we understand that on this journey, there is so much that we go through, and we can't force our timing on other people. And because we had so much trust in each other, and so much trust that whenever we were meant to do this was going to happen in the right way. And it took a year. It took a year. And that's okay. That's okay. And it's really important to have those people around you that understands that.
That's it. That's it. I think like having people who understand and can hold that space for you is so important and really goes a long way, because we don't deserve to feel guilty for doing what's best for ourselves. My second one, it's okay to rest.
Yes,
Big
I love that.
theme, big
I love
theme.
that.
And I think like removing the guilt with the rest has been so empowering because for some reason, I don't know why so many of us just feel guilty for wanting to rest. And this is such an illusion of a thought, so false and so not true because like has anything bad really, like truly come from rest? No.
Unless you're
No.
driving, perhaps, and you fall asleep. But that's
I'm
a
not
whole
saying
other,
fall
not a
asleep.
conversation to be had here. But anyway.
Yeah. And this is just something that has been, we're taught we only have so much time in a day. But I mean, think about all the different ways that we suck our time, waste our time. And, we don't care about those things. And sometimes we feel a little bit guilty. Okay, I watched a little too much TV. But God forbid I stop what I'm doing and have a rest, but I realize how powerful rest is. Rest for me really is this time of integration. I feel like we have all of these things available to us, but oftentimes we don't allow ourselves the rest to receive. And that's the word receive, it's a time for receiving. And, when we're constantly going, when do we have time to receive? And it goes back to what you said, we're not human doings, we're human beings. So now I get excited. I mean, who doesn't want to receive things? So I try to look at it as my rest is my time to be the receiver, to receive from the people around me, to receive from God, to receive from my internal wisdom, to, whatever it is. And I've become very intentional with my rest time. And, a nap is nice, but sometimes I just want to take a bath and make it look pretty, do a little bit of like self-love ritual, journal, meditate. It's so good. And I feel like I can just feel spirit just moving through me in such a bigger way when I'm just allowing myself that space to just like lay back and receive all the goodness that has probably been trying to make its way inside of my being for so long, and I just haven't allowed it. And I do believe that if we don't allow ourselves that space to rest, it will happen, so,
Whether you
it'll
have it
happen
or
on our
spirit.
terms or not.
Exactly. Yeah. And oh, learned that the
Yeah,
hard lesson, because spirit will be like, nope, you're resting.
you're resting.
And you know what? You were going to rest for a nap, but we're going to rest for 3 months. Forget the nap. We're going to have you stop doing everything. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love how
And
you said spirit. Sorry to interrupt. I love how you said spirit moves through you, because in rest is actually when we can feel spirit in our body. When I say spirit, I mean soul in our body doing something.
yeah, no, it's you're absolutely right. And I think back just recently, I had been trying to be very intentional with rest going into 2022.
Mhm.
If you look at my page, it's definitely on a bit of a hiatus. And, I put a little message. I'm trying to regain focus because I have been in probably one of the deepest rest cycles of my life. And just when I felt like, okay, I've rested and I've received, I'm going to come back out. Well, then I get COVID. So I feel like, and old me would be so upset. I'm feeling good. I'm ready to put myself back out there. And then now I get smacked down with this virus. And I could have been mad about it, but I just felt so grateful. Like, okay, it's not my time to emerge yet. That's fine. I'm going to continue to lay back and utilize this sickness to just keep receiving and gain clarity on my vision and all of these things. And it's been such a beautiful time. I mean, yeah, the body suffers a little bit, but I still believe in rest we find strength. And my body might have been having a hard time, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually, I do feel that I'm coming out of this much stronger. So I think our perspective and our attitude about the things that are happening for us is so important too, because these things are happening for a reason. And it all comes down to how we look at it and how we choose to use these moments to, come out better and stronger. So, um, yeah, I mean, COVID was a time of resting and integrating and implementing, really like looking at my plan and being like, how am I going to take action? If I had come out like a week earlier, 2 weeks earlier, there was so much that I missed, that God still wanted me to receive. So um, now I'm at the end of it and I'm feeling like I went through a whole butterfly transformation, ready to reemerge. All the gunk is starting to make its way off. So yeah, rest is so powerful.
You said something earlier. You said gunk just now, but earlier you said there was residual energy from last year, and I think that it was such a powerful sort of awareness that there is still some things that needed to kind of recalibrate and rejudge and like be removed from our system. And rest really is where you found that. Yeah, and the awareness that you had in terms of what that secondary round of rest meant to you, really really important to listen, because a lot of us a lot of us won't, a lot of us will be like, nope, can't rest anymore, gotta go, gotta do. But following again the guidance, the intuition to, okay, step back a little bit and trust that there's a reason for it. I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, rest is always a good thing. Rest is not being lazy.
No,
I
not at
think
all. And that's
oftentimes
the
that's
limiting
where the
belief.
confusion, yeah.
Yeah, that's the limiting belief and the guilt. And I think a lot of us feel guilty in resting because we probably don't feel like we were productive enough when we weren't resting. We were just kind of coasting
Right.
versus doing the deep inner work. And if we felt that we did enough of the deep inner work and the healing and all that, then we wouldn't feel so guilty resting, because we know we've done what our soul needed us to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. I was trying to look at this and see if I can like condense it down into a word, but I can't. So
That's okay. We're here. We're here
my
for it.
my third thought, or my third lesson, was even alongside pain, confusion, and darkness, there is another reality at play that is certain, unifying, and light, and that I should continue to tap into that reality. So I really had a lot of these like awarenesses around just the actual yin and yang and duality of this life, and it really comes down to the reality that I choose to tap into on a daily basis. So I kept looking, and I think like energetically it was just draining me and like sucking the life force out of me, just seeing all the shit going on in the world. It's hard to wake up to it every day, and collectively you feel it and it pulls on us and it drains us. But I was choosing to focus on that, so I had to assure myself that there is another reality at play. not maybe, there is.
Yeah.
And I can choose to like wake up each day and tap into that reality, where the reality where things are working out and the favor of mankind, of humanity, and that, we will be okay, and being honest with myself, even if I don't get to see that come to fruition in my in my lifetime, it will come to fruition. And that just if I don't, if I'm not able to see that doesn't mean that I can't wake up each day and do the work to see that reality come to fruition. And that was probably the big aha moment
Yeah.
of 2021. And then just noticing that each day that I choose to tap into the reality that supports my vision for my life, and the one that is good and light and unifying and connected and all of those things, how much it really does like enhance my day-to-day life. We really do become our environment and what we feed our mind and the people we choose to surround ourselves with and all of these things. And I really did like a huge inventory on my life. What am I feeding my spirit, my soul? Who am I spending time with? What thoughts am I allowing to penetrate my mind each day? And how is that affecting my day-to-day life? And how can I tap into something that feels more nourishing and supportive and safe? So as I woke up each day and began to implement those changes and tap into, the other side, I'm like, okay, life is good. This other stuff is not helping me. So why am I choosing to go there on a daily basis? No, thank you.
I like that. No,
Pass.
thank you. I'll pass.
Yeah.
No, I love that reflection. Um, it's interesting because you said that you did it on a day-to-day basis, like you implemented whatever practices you implemented to get there and to tap into that. And I think that's really the key, right? To really tap into or plug yourself into whatever it is that can get you to a higher timeline, a higher vibration. And even if it's something small, it's baby steps to get you there. And to your point, it's every day. It has to be consistent. It has to be every single day. We can't just do it one day and then forget it the next day, because then we kind of, we're in it and then we're like, oh, it's not sustainable. Well, it's not sustainable because you haven't done it every day. Dr. Joe Dispenza, love, probably have a conversation about him. He has this book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And really that's what it is. It's breaking old habits to create new habits so that you can plug into higher vibrations. So you can plug into a higher mindset so you can plug into higher states of consciousness and whatever else it is. And there are two timelines that exist. The timeline where it's sort of, we're in this cycle, karmic loop and karmic pattern, or we get to break those karmic loops and karmic patterns and create a new timeline for ourselves so that we can create our version of heaven on earth. And when we can anchor in heaven on earth for ourselves, then everything else around us automatically magnetizes heaven on earth from our perspective, because we're seeing things differently. And to your point, it is a day-to-day practice of choosing something higher than the old. And most people won't do it because it's hard. And I'm going to say it's hard because sometimes it's even hard for me. And it's not easy. Sometimes it's not easy, but it gets to be easy, because the more you do it, the more then it just gets ingrained. But
Every day, it's just like you said, making it a habit, and our habits become our identity. So again, like we started out, who the hell am I? Who the hell do you want to be?
Yeah.
And just tapping into that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's easier for us to choose suffering.
It's what we were taught.
Yeah,
Yeah.
than to want to
Yeah.
choose better. And I think we all want to, but it's just what is easier, what is more convenient.
Hmm.
But when you've struggled or you've gone through the same thing time in, time out over and over again, I think eventually you get sick and tired and you want better for yourself and you want better for your family, you want better for the future generations. And and I think also just creating that clarity around the vision, is what helps us anchor into the reality of what could be, and really what is. So yeah, I'm excited to take these lessons and apply them in this new year that we have here.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling really good about it. And I know that the lessons will continue. Um, but it's always an opportunity to learn and to grow and to be better and do better. So I'm
Yeah.
always for that.
Yeah. I agree. Every day is an opportunity to learn, to grow, to become better versions of ourselves. And that self identity is really, really important to be clear, as you said, to be clear. You actually said something really important earlier. You said people that you surround yourself with, and really, really important when when we are in that space of wanting to do better for ourselves, who we surround ourselves with, who we talk to on a daily basis, they need to have the same energy and the same mindset so that they can help you along the way. Because otherwise we get stuck in the same patterns. We get sucked into the old if someone is not growing with us. So I think this space right here, we're always about personal growth. We're always about wanting to do better and be better. So this space here is an invitation to tap into similar mindset of doing better, being better. Because when we know better, we do better. And you said you're excited about the lessons, and it's interesting because like I feel the same way now. If you had asked me a year ago, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm tired of lessons. Can we just be done? But you know what? It always comes because we're meant to evolve. We're meant to learn and grow and evolve in this lifetime. And, for these conversations, I really hope to help others on their path when they're learning the lessons. And I want to be able to share some of the lessons that I've learned, and whatever resonates, resonates, whatever doesn't, doesn't. But those are the types of conversations that, we get to have here in this container that we created. Um, but yeah, I'm so happy that you shared that. So you want to repeat just the three things
Yeah.
that you
So
have? Okay.
yeah, my three things, we had um my brain. Um okay, I know I had rest on there. And this is why the bullet points are so important because all of my thoughts are so abstract. But I know
I
we had go
remember.
with the rhythm, we
There you go.
had rest, and then we had just kind of how can I condense this thought? Just really just choosing which reality you want to live in, I mean, every day we have a choice. What are you choosing?
Yeah. Perfect. I love that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And those are three great things to bring into this new year as well. I know we wanted to talk about anchoring in what our three words are for 2022, but I think that maybe that could be another conversation for another time, because I think that's really important to talk about too, because there's a lot of things there.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
have any parting words for anyone, and anyone who's listening and anyone who's tuned in?
Yeah. Yeah, I really want to circle back around just with what you were saying with who we surround ourselves with, it matters. So just closing, I just want to say just be intentional about who you invite into your life, because we do have a choice, and we do have the choice to invite people, and I'm learning more and more just as we spend time with people who lower our vibration or drain us. And I think we're all very aware of that. Our energy, our energetic body becomes so much more vulnerable, you know, and when we're in these vulnerable states, it's kind of when these things start to latch on to us and seep into our spirits. So, you know, just when you wake up each day, you know, take inventory of who's in your life and know that you have the choice to choose better and do better, you know, and that there's wonderful people who are doing wonderful things who are seeking you just as much as you're seeking them, you know,
I
so
love
tap
that.
into that.
They're seeking you as much as you're seeking them. I love that. Yes. Yeah, I think that's a really, really good close. I agree with all of that.
Mhm.
I agree with all of that. So we're
Should
going
we
to
do
close
a
with that.
another little grounding send
Yes.
off?
Yes. Okay. So, okay. As we close, we just want to say thank you for joining us in our first soul conversation. We do have a few other soul conversations that we recorded probably about a year ago that we'll add to our playlist, so you could just kind of see that as you kind of get to know us. It'll be good to kind of look at that just to kind of see who we are. Although I will say a lot of those conversations, we have probably a very different perspective because we did grow a lot in the last year, but it's just good to kind of look at that, peruse through that, and kind of see where soul conversations with Jenna and Patty, what it's about. But I wanted to kind of always open the space and then close the space. So we're gonna just kind of sit wherever you are, close your eyes, place your left hand on your heart space, place your right hand on your high heart, which is the space between your heart and your throat. And then take a few deep cleansing breaths. We thank you to our souls for helping guide this conversation. We thank you for any of the viewers who are listening. May they receive the message they are meant to receive. Thank you for the wisdom and the downloads that came through. Thank you for the activations that came through. And may our conversations and may the spirit of the divine, the spirit of God, be always in these conversations to help light and guide the way for those souls that need it. And we end the space in love, in light, and gratitude. We thank you for the time. We thank you for your being here. And we thank you for your continued support on this journey. We hope you join us again. And we hope that this helped and served you in some way. Sending you loving thoughts, sending you loving vibrations, sending you love from our soul to yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you hanging in there with us. Of course, your like and subscribe would mean so much to us.
Yes. And feel free to message us if there is some sort of conversation that you would love for us to have. Did I just say ask? Sorry. Love for us to have. We'll probably invite in a few other kind of like-minded souls to have deeper soul conversations with sort of our community as well. But we're here to build a community, and we're here to help and support you as much as we can. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Bye.